Hello everybody, thank you for joining us for another story time today. Today's story is going to be about one of my most favorite animals, and it kind of gets a bad reputation, so we kind of think of it being like evil and scary and not a good animal, and that could not be further from the truth. I love this animal, and they do tons of really awesome things for us. So I'm going to give you a few hints and see if you can guess what this animal is. The first really awesome thing they do for us is they eat up a ton of mosquitoes in the summertime. And not just mosquitoes, they eat tons of insects, which can also be really helpful to our farmers and people growing food because they'll eat insects that are considered pests or that might eat the plants that you're trying to grow to eat. So they are very good at pest control. They also, not the ones we have here, but in other parts of the world, they eat a lot of fruit. And when they eat a lot of fruit, they eat the seeds of the fruit. And then when they are traveling, the seeds from the fruit come out in their waste or their poop. And that actually helps replant our forests, which is a really important job. So we call that seed dispersal. They're very good at spreading out seeds and growing new plants. So that's very helpful. They also help us pollinate different plants. So while they're going to a plant to eat the fruit from it or drink the nectar, the sweet juice that might be in that plant, when they get there, the plant has a dust called pollen on it, and it gets all over this animal's fur. That's another hint. And then when it goes to a new flower, it brings that pollen there and dumps it off. And the plants need pollen from other plants to help them make more plants or seeds that are going to turn into more plants. So they help us grow lots of different plants, and we wouldn't have some of our favorite things without this animal because they are the only pollinators for some of our plants like bananas or fig trees, and lots of different nuts we get from these trees. We get cocoa or chocolate from plants that these animals pollinate. And the other hint, I have two more hints for you. They also give us a good fertilizer. We call it guano, is the poop from this animal. And it is the only mammal capable of true flight, so it can fly. What mammal can fly? That's right, we're talking about bats today. So we're going to read a book called Big Brown Bat. This is a type of bat that we have in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So we will be learning more about this big brown bat. We also have what's called the little brown bat, and these bats are very, very hard to tell apart. Little brown bats are our most common type of bats, and big brown bats are our second most common type. But there's a lot of similarities between them. Oh, it was written by Rick Chrustowski. Shadows reach across fields one evening in June. As the warm glow of sunset fades, butterflies and songbirds settle in to sleep. Now the sky belongs to night creatures. I see some night creatures. Do you? See our big brown bat friend? We also see, what are these? Fireflies. Big brown bats wake up in their secret roost. They live up in the rafters of a farmhouse attic. The room is dark and quiet, like a cave. But this cave is hot and dry, the perfect place for a nursery. What's a nursery? That's where they're going to raise their baby bats. The bats rush off on their nightly hunt. They stretch their wings and drop into the air one by one. Flapping and circling around the air vent, the bats squeeze through the narrow slats to the outside world. So they can get out those narrow slats in the air vent in the attic. One bat stays behind. She hooks her thumb claws into a rafter and hangs down. Soon she gives birth to a wrinkly pink bat pup. She cradles him in her tail apron and licks him clean. So all mammals Mammals have a few things in common. All of them, first of all, have fur. They're warm-blooded, and they give birth to live young. So bats don't hatch out of eggs. Mama bat gives birth to a live baby bat. And that bat, we learned, was just called a pup. And it doesn't look like it has very much fur at first, which is pretty common. Its eyes are still closed. And mama bat is holding the baby bat in what they're calling the tail apron. So she has this tail that she's flipped up to make kind of like a little bowl that her baby bat can sit in, which is pretty cool. And they said she has claws on her thumb, so you can see her hanging by those claws. The pup can't see yet, but he can hold on. He snuggles under his mother's wing and drinks the warm milk she makes for him. So that's another characteristic of mammals. They feed their young milk. A few nights later, the mother bat leaves her pup alone while she hunts. He clings to the rafter upside down and calls for her to return. His squeaking cries echo through the darkness. Finally, at dawn, she returns to feed him. The pup grabs onto her fur and purrs himself to sleep like a kitten. Pretty cute. Over the next week, the other bats have babies. While they hunt, their babies stay close together to keep warm. The oldest pup dangles from the rafter and pumps his wings for practice. He is almost strong enough to fly. So just like birds, you can see birds in the nest flapping their wings to practice before they leave. Bats have to do the same thing. When the pup is 3 weeks old, he lets go of the rafter and plunges into darkness. Whoosh! His wings flash open and catch the air. The young bat flies with his hands. His long fingers and short arms are wrapped between 2 layers of rubbery skin. When he spreads his fingers, his wings open wide. He pumps the air to dash forward. Loop, swoop, spin. He flips in midair and tries to snag the rafter with his toe claws. After lots of fluttery stumbling, he finally grabs hold. Let's see if we can see a little better in this image. All right, so we can see he has these long skinny parts of his wing that we see. Those are actually his fingers. So he has a special membrane between the fingers, and that's what makes up a bat's wing. Their scientific name is Chiroptera, which literally means hand wing in Latin. 1 week later, the mother bat weans the pup off her milk. So that means she slowly stops feeding him milk because he's going to have to start hunting for his own food. He is a young bat now and needs to hunt for his supper. He follows his mother out the air vent and gets his first look at the vast, starry sky. Just then, his mother zips by, chasing a June bug. The bat leaps off the building and soars after her. He watches her swoop down on a beetle and scoop it up in her tail apron, so they can use their tails to help them scoop and catch their prey. Like his mother, the young bat uses his ears when he is hunting. As he flies, he opens his mouth and shrieks into the darkness. The pulses of sound spread like ripples on water. They bounce off objects and return to his ears as echoes. The bat gets clues from each echo. Together, they create a snapshot of the world around him: trees, houses, and other bats. An insect is flapping its wings up there in the treetop. It has skinny legs, long antennae. It's a moth. So we can see the bat using his hearing by making sound, and then we can see the blue rings, and then the yellow looks like the sound bouncing back to him, and he's listening to find where that moth is, using his ears instead of his eyes. The bat pinpoints his prey. He shrieks faster, 30 pulses per second, 50, now 75. The echoes return at a furious pace. The moth has a secret weapon. She can hear the bat shrieks with a pair of ears on her back. Wow. She dodges left, whirls upward, then swerves right, but the bat flies straight and cuts her off. Just before the bat attacks, he shrieks 200 times per second. The echoes are so close together, they return as a buzz of information. He rushes in for the kill. The moth has one last chance to escape. She folds up her wings and dives from the sky like a fighter plane, just out of reach. It's a pretty exciting chase. The bat doesn't go hungry for long. He learns quickly that a June bug is easier to catch than an underwing moth. He bites through the beetle's armor and tastes his first insect meal. After a week, the bat is a hunting machine, gobbling up 1/2 of its own weight in insects each night. In July, the bat eats cucumber beetles. In August, he eats leafhoppers. And in September, he hunts for green stink bugs. So all of our bats in Minnesota are insectivores, or they only eat insects. So we don't have to worry about bats trying to bite us or eat us, because that's not what our bats eat. By fall, the bat is fully grown and padded up with extra weight. The stored fat will keep him alive through winter. Cold nights and hard freezes tell the bats that it's time to leave the attic. Where are they going to go for winter? The bat follows his mother across the farm fields and down a ravine where limestone cliffs hide secret caves. He skims one last drink from the river, then disappears into the hideaway. During the icy winter, the bat clings to the face of the stone wall. For 6 months while he hibernates, blood barely flows through his veins. Some days his body temperature falls below freezing. He's still alive, just waiting for spring. When the snow finally melts and insects buzz through the field, the bat and his family will wake up and own the night sky once again. So while they're hibernating, bats are in a deep, deep rest we call hibernation, and their heart rate slows way, way down, and their hearts might only beat a few times per second, or per minute, so their blood is like barely even moving through their bodies, which is pretty crazy. And that is the end of our story about bats. We'll see them again in the spring. I'll quick read about the bat basics here at the end of our book. Look into the sky on a warm summer night. A winged shadow might dash overhead. Maybe it's a bat tracking its prey. Bats are mammals. They are warm-blooded. We talked about that. Their bodies are covered with hair or fur, and they give birth to live young that feed on their mother's milk. Bats are the only mammal that can fly. There are around 1,000 different bat species in the world. Of the 40 species that live in the Western Hemisphere, so this half of the planet that we live on, big browns are one of the most common. They can be found from central Canada through the United States and into South America. A big brown bat isn't as big as its name suggests. It weighs half an ounce, and its body is 5 inches long with a 10-inch wingspan. It's about the size of a songbird. Because its wings are also hands, it has incredible control in flight. It can hover like a hummingbird, zip forward and back like a dragonfly, and flip in the air like an acrobat. When a big brown bat flies with its mouth open, it's using echolocation. The sound pulses it makes cannot be heard by humans. By listening closely to the echoes that return, a bat can tell if an insect is a moth or a beetle, how far away it is, how high off the ground, how fast it's moving, and even the texture of its body. A bat can eat 1/2 or more of its own weight in insects each night. Early in summer, female big browns gather in small maternal roosts in barns, abandoned buildings, and houses to give birth. Their pups suckle for the next month, and then they are ready to fly and hunt for their own food. With a little luck, a big brown bat can live to be 18 or 19 years old, but most scientists believe a 10-year lifespan is more likely. For more information about bats of all kinds, visit Bat Conservation International at their website, www.batcon.org. And I'll put that in our resources for our story time this week, and a few other bat-related activities that you can check out. But bats are under threat in our area, something known as white nose syndrome. And this is a fungus that grows on the bat's nose, and it makes them wake up in the middle of their hibernation. So the story talked about how they have to have extra fat on their bodies to survive through the winter. And this disease makes them wake up and fly around, which burns off a lot of that fat, and then they don't have enough to survive until the springtime. So it's been a pretty devastating disease that is really affecting our bat populations. But the other thing that we can do to really help bats out is just educate people. Most people are still really afraid of bats, and they might intentionally try to kill any bats that they find. But bats do so many good things for us. They're really good for our ecosystem, and we really need them. So do what you can to help protect bats. Tell people that they're not scary and about all the great things that they do, and check out some of our bat activities that we have for this week's story time. We'll see you again in 2 weeks for another story time, and until then, have a great time, get outside, and enjoy some nature. We'll see you later. Bye.